Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tihila Vanachari Yamuna Tihila Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tihila Vanachari Yamuna Tihila Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvrajagacharya Stotra Sata Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Yantara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, 8th Canto, Chapter 9, Text 13. Iti abhivayatrim tasya akanya surapungava apramana vidastasyas tat tat he yanva mamsata itya bhiviritam tasya Arkarnya Surapungava Apramana Vidastasya Tattathena Vamamsata Ityabiva Ritam Tasya Akarna Surya Pungava Apramana Vidastasya Tathetyava Mamam Sata. Anasura Pungava Tasya Tatateya Vamamsata Tiabiva Yatuntasya Apramana Vidastasya Tatathetya Vamamsata Iti Abhivir Yatam Sasya Akanya Surapangava Apramana Vidastasya Tatate Vamsata. Ladies. Iti Abhivi Yatasya Karnasya Surapungava Apramana Vidastasya Tatatyena Vamsata Iti Abhiya Vitamstasya Tasya Go on, you can do it. Iti abhivahitam sasya Akaryan asurapungava Apramana vidastasya Atateya Tata. Thereafter Gritiva. That's, oh, hang on, am I reading the right? Oh, sorry, Prabhu, I'm sorry. I've gone up, they've left it on the wrong page. Here we go. Word for word. Iti. Okay, we're right now. Thus. Abhiyagritam. The words that were spoken. Tasya. Her. Akarmya. After hearing. Asura Pungava, the chief of the demons. Apramana Vidha, because they were all foolish. Tasya, of her. Tat, those words. Tatha, let it be so. Iti, thus. Anvarmamsata, agreed to accept. Translation. The chief of the demons were not very expert in deciding things. Upon hearing the sweet words of Mohini-murti, they immediately ascended. Yes, they answered. What you have said is all right. Thus the demons agreed to accept her decision. So there's no purport for this one, so I'll read the next two verses, so that's also 14 and 15. The translation is, the demigods and the demons then observed a fast. After bathing, they offered clarified butter and oblations into the fire and gave charity to the cows and to the brahmanas and members of the other orders of society, namely the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras, who were all rewarded as they deserved. Thereafter, the demigods and the demons performed ritualistic ceremonies under the direction of the brahmanas. Then they dressed themselves in new garments according to their own choice, decorated their bodies with ornaments, and sat facing the east on seats made of kusa grass. So purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Vedas enjoin that for every ritualistic ceremony there must be one must first become clean by bathing either in the water of the Ganga or the Jamuna or in the sea. Then one may perform the ritualistic ceremonies and offer clarified butter into the fire. In this verse, the word paridhaya hatani are specifically significant. A sannyasi or a person about to perform a ritualistic ceremony should not dress himself in clothing sewn with a needle. Om Gana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So there are only short purports in this, but I thought it was an interesting section of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. The first verse again went, the chiefs of the demigods were not very expert in deciding things, so they were bewildered. Upon hearing the sweet words of Mohini-murti, they immediately ascended, yes. And they answered, what you have said is all right. Thus the demons agreed to accept her decision. So Mohini-murti bewildered the demons. Lord Krishna can manifest himself as a woman, and being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the most, isn't this funny to say, he is the most beautiful woman. More beautiful than Lakshmi Devi. And Lakshmi is so beautiful, most beautiful. So the Asuras would do anything for her. Mohini just suggested something and yes, we will do that, we agree. So I was thinking about this whole thing of male and female interaction. And I listened to this study some time ago of 2 Australian scientists that actually analysed, and this is from our side, from a man's side, the effect on everyday men being in the presence of an extremely beautiful woman. Okay? So a guy who's in the presence of an extremely beautiful woman, their research pointed out that it provided evidence for an effect that exists in art, literature, and history for thousands and thousands of years. The fact is that beautiful women lead men to throw caution to the wind. Anything can happen. Oh, this beautiful woman likes me. And they'll do anything. In history, we see people like Julius Caesar, who was one of the greatest leaders of this world, who was completely mesmerized by the beauty of Cleopatra. And in fact, he basically threw his whole kingdom away because of her. Napoleon Bonaparte, getting closer to great leader, powerful leader, was completely enamored by Josephine, beautiful woman. And even in modern day history, you have people like the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Some of you, all of you probably, no, some of us remember John F. Kennedy. Very charismatic, very powerful person, leader of the world, completely enamored by a woman. Now he had already a beautiful wife, Jacqueline Kennedy. But he was infatuated and completely, he threw everything, his position, his honor, his prestige and everything, following Marilyn Monroe. Everybody know Marilyn Monroe? One of the most beautiful women at that time. And he was completely besotted, and he was just beautiful. He was just completely infatuated by the beauty of this woman and would do anything. In fact, he even told her secrets from his running of the country. major secrets in the conflict with communist Russia. And so she was actually a threat to the stability of the country because he was so enamored by her. And he couldn't care less. He didn't care that his wife knew or anything. And then his brother, Robert Kennedy, also was infatuated by this woman. So when his brother passed away, he continued on. I think it was like that. But anyway, so over the years it's seen that men especially, are attracted to beautiful women. So it's demoniac sort of understanding, and because we all have both a demon and a devotee living within us, men especially, and these demoniac people and the demons here wanted to possess Mohini-murti, and anything she said, oh yes, I'll do, because there may be a chance that she likes me, and then I can possess her. So we see this also with Ravan. He wanted to possess Sita, most beautiful personality. So for these scientists, from their research, they were seeing men that were men seeing an extremely attractive woman can lead to an increase in the production of sexual hormones like testosterone. So all of a sudden there's a boost of testosterone, and this can influence their desires and attraction. From a cognitive point of view, from a brain point of view, beyond the immediate physical and emotional response, like these guys are just like, wow, they found that a cognitive approach also comes into play. So your brain starts playing tricks on you. The brain may engage in thoughts and judgment about the attractiveness of the person and their relationship to that person, and then what happens is the brain totally bewilders that individual, totally bewilders them. And that's what's happened here with the demigods, the demons. They were completely bewildered. Yes, we'll do whatever you want. You're so beautiful. So this was the whole thing. So the Asuras were totally compliant to the directions of the Supreme Lord, Mohini-murti. And we'll see how that eventuates. And she's very, 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 very cunning, how everything turns out. So the next couple of verses, which are really interesting as well, that basically describes rituals in religious life, the rituals that we do. So from an interfaith perspective, everybody knows that I work a lot with other faith traditions. From an interfaith perspective, there are numerous rituals that are performed by different religions. Each one have got their own way of doing things and different rituals to worship God. And I've seen many and varied of them. And it's amazing when you see the different complexities. Even in the indigenous community. Has anybody ever been here to a smoking ceremony? A smoking ceremony is really amazing, where and this is a ritual, understanding that we're all coming from the earth is also part of us, and so on. So in every culture, in every religion, there are rituals. In fact, in everyday life, we may have so many mundane rituals that we perform every day. How many of you have a ritual when you go into the bathroom? You come in the morning, what's the first thing you do? You put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, you line up the towel, you do, isn't it? And if it's not done in that ritualistic way, something feels off. If someone interrupts you in setting up your morning ritual, even when you have breakfast, I've got to have my cereal like this, I've got to have my milk like this, or my khichdi has to be exactly like this. And when there's an interruption or there's a phone call, it really throws you off. I'm out of my ritual. Some people have it more than others, but basically speaking, we all have our rituals. Even to the extent where we're putting on our clothes, there's a ritual to putting on our clothes, setting up our work desk, it has to be exactly like this, the drink has to be there, the Bhagavatam has to be there, yes, the kartals are here, okay, I can perform class. It's all rituals. So rituals are very, very important in our lives, to a certain extent. Even in sports clubs, rituals are very important. Now today is a very, very, very sacred day. I hope you all realise that the main religion in Australia is Australian rules football. Okay? So today is the epitome. It's like the Janmashtami of Australian rules football. What is it today? Can anybody tell me? It's the grand final. We had a holiday for it yesterday, and today we're having another day where it's the grand final. And so there is ritual also connected with our sporting teams. There's a particular uniform that we wear. If you were, some people may be here, an old South Melbourne follower of football, which was red and white, and they went over to Sydney, so red and white. And also Brisbane, if you're from Brisbane, you wear those colours and you wear a beanie with it, and you wear everything is just like, I have my ritualistic uniform on because I belong and I support a Sydney team, or I support the Brisbane team. And the ritual is also to the extent that they have a particular ritualistic song that they must sing at the end of the game. The game can't finish unless they have the ritualistic song pertaining, we are the mighty, you know, they all, yay! Just like we have our ritualistic song too. What's our ritualistic song? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Nitago Premanande, Haribo. So that's our ritual. So in the armed services, in the army, in the navy, everybody has their uniforms, everybody has their rituals, in business, etc. So in my youth, I was brought up as a Christian, a Catholic. And in fact, the rituals were very, very... Anybody been to a Catholic church? Yep, a couple of people. So the rituals in a Catholic church are incredibly important. Everything has to go exactly to the right way. You know, there's a start to it, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And so this is very, very important. So I was a Catholic, I was brought up a Catholic, and when I was about your age, I was an altar boy. So one of the rituals is that the priest has a young boy, helping them in the service, in doing the rest of the rituals. Handing the priest the wine and the water, ringing the bell when the certain things are going on. You remember that, don't you, John? Were you an altar boy?
I was.
There you go. So anyway, you might remember this, and it freaked me out completely. At Vatican II, they decided to change the rituals of the Catholic Church. They said, we are now going to change this over to English. Everything is going to be in English, and we're going to change the rituals. Somehow or other, they all got together and said, it's no longer necessary to have the Catholic Mass in Latin. We now want to make it more accessible to everyone, and so we'll change it over to English. This was too much for me. I said, forget it. I'm not going to learn all these rituals over again, and I quit. So it's very confusing to change rituals. So we see in Christianity there are many, many rules and regulations and rituals that were changed right from the very start, right from the start. And this is a really interesting thing. I've made it a bit of a project in my life, because I come from that Christian, Judaic Christian background, to find out more about the life of Lord Jesus, who Srila Prabhupada said was a pure devotee of the Lord, a Shakshavesha avatar. So I wanted to find out where actually this all comes from, and it's a question of rituals. Jesus, number one, he wasn't a Christian, okay? So many people think that Jesus was a Christian. He wasn't. He was Jewish. He was Jewish, and he belonged to a group called Essenes. Anybody ever heard of the Essenes? This knowledge about Jesus' actual history is now coming out slowly but surely. It's been covered and hidden for millennium by unscrupulous people who wanted to manipulate the world, and I may be getting in trouble with my interfaith friends here because of this, but the point is that the truth of Jesus is now coming out. Various scriptures are coming to the fore that is showing that Jesus was actually an Essene. An Essene was a group of people that lived near Nazareth in Israel, in Palestine. And the Essenes were very, very strict. Now in history, these Essenes date back thousands of years, eventually back to India. Back to India. And the Essenes, even at the time of Jesus, some of the leaders of the Essene group would go to India and come back again and learn from the different yogis and come back again to Nazareth. And so Jesus was a Nazarene. He studied at a very early age the Nazarene philosophy. And they were followers of this tradition. Now, in that tradition, they believed in one God. They were monotheistic. But the interesting thing was they understood that God was both male and female. They believed this. They had that understanding. They also believed in reincarnation. They believed in no intoxication. They believed in non-violence. No one should kill anything. And they believed in karma. Sounds vaguely familiar? Yeah. So this was the teachings of Jesus. And so his guru was John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was also an Essene, a Nazarene. So Jesus taught these teachings along with the rules of Judaism. He didn't claim to be anything else but Jewish, but he was an Essene. And so he said to his followers, I haven't come to change your laws or your rituals. All I want you to understand is that I'll leave you one commandment. And this is actually factual. He actually left this commandment. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. And love your neighbor as you love yourself. So he understood that Krishna, God, was dwelling within, and that we should be respectful for all living entities like that. So this was his teachings. And basically speaking, that's Bhakti Yoga. So he was teaching that. And Prabhupada actually concurs with that also, that Jesus was actually teaching nothing but Bhakti Yoga. So the Romans ruled that part of the world at that stage. They had a major power over the world at that stage, and they ruled this Palestine region where the Jews were. Now the Jews had this really unique way of making money. If you had committed a sin of some description, then you could go to the temple and they would sacrifice an animal for you, and that sacrifice would atone for your sins, right? So if you were very, very poor, they'll let you they will slaughter a dove, a pigeon for you. So that's if you were really poor. If you had a little bit more money, then they'll slaughter a goat or a sheep or a cow, depending on how much money you had. And the money would go to these priests. They were wealthy from this because people thought, oh gosh, I've committed a sin, I better go to the temple and repent. And they'd say, yes, you'll have to be a goat for that one. That's a pretty big sin, you know, we'll have to slaughter a goat. So Jesus was so upset with this teaching that he adamantly preached against this. And so so the Pharisees, the scribes and the Pharisees, who were these Jewish businessmen, priests, were, what is this guy doing? You know, he's destroying our livelihood, because people were actually following his teachings. Just like Prabhupada, when he came to the West, people were following his teachings. Prabhupada said if the powers that be knew what he was going to do, they would never have let him into America. Never. But he snuck in. So Jesus, in the same way, was actually preaching this. So the Pharisees were saying, we've got to get this guy out of here. So they pressured the Romans to kill him. And so Jesus was crucified on the cross. So his teachings then were adulterated. He had specific teachings, these teachings of non-violence, reincarnation, vegetarianism, like that. And they were adulterated. The principal person that changed the religion of Jesus, or the faith or the teachings of Jesus, was one of his grand disciples. He wasn't even a disciple of Jesus, never saw Jesus, was Paul. And Paul thought, hey, this is a good thing. He probably had a good heart in one sense, and he wanted to bring people to a more loving relationship to God in one sense, but he wanted to make it for everyone. And he said, so he watered down the teachings of Jesus. No, you don't have to be a vegetarian. This reincarnation thing, no, don't worry about that. And so it was completely changed. And over time, over the centuries, various groups that follow Jesus in different ways existed. Now, at one stage, the Romans, who were, again, the ruling government of a major section in this area, decided that actually the way we best control these Christians, because it was sort of, the faith was growing, the best way that we could control these people is if we become Christians. And so they had this meeting, and at this meeting they said, we're going to change all the rituals. You know, we're going to change all the rituals. Number one is you can have meat and you can have intoxicant because we like it. You know, so we'll change that. So you can have that. And they also said, hang on a tick, you Jewish people, you're always worshipping on the Sabbath, which is Saturday. They said, no, hang on, we used to have Sunday because we worship the sun god. And so, no, that has to change. We change it from a Saturday to Sunday. That's why Sunday is called Sunday, because it is the worship of the sun god, which is a Roman god. And they saw Jesus also as the Son of God. Anyway, it's a really complex sort of thing. So these rituals and everything were completely changed. So this is indicative of how things can change if you don't follow exactly the teachings of the Acharya. That's why Prabhupada said, don't change anything. I've taught you everything. Just follow exactly. And we have to be so mindful in this day and age that we stay with Prabhupada's teachings and don't change things. So there is an interesting thing. So now in Christianity, there are so many different rituals. We have, what else happened? This was the other thing that happened in the Roman times. Because there were so many different groups that believed different things about the teachings of Jesus, especially the Essenes, they said, hey, hang on a tick, what do we do with these Essenes? Because, you know, we can't have them preaching. So they executed thousands and thousands and thousands of Essenes. Anybody that believed in these teachings, the Essene teachings, was slaughtered, killed, outright. And they made the deaths so horrific that anybody that thought, hey, I like the Essene teachings, they thought, no, yeah, but I also like my life. I don't want to die like they died, so they dropped their faith. So what the Essenes did, they wrote down their teachings and hid them in all various parts in mountain caves for thousands of years, for a couple of thousand years, and also in Tibet. They hid them in Tibet as well. And just over the last 100 years or so, this information has slowly crept into the public domain. And with the internet now, these teachings are available to so many people. So within Christianity, there are many, many different organizations and different rituals. You have, even in the Catholic faith, you have Orthodox Christians and you have Catholics. Anybody ever been to an Orthodox church, Greek Orthodox? It's amazing how different it is to the Catholic, Roman Catholic. They do things in a ritualistic way, far more ritualistic actually, far more devotional in a sense, a little bit more close to the Vedic culture. Something that in the Greek Orthodox religion that's remained and continued on from the Essene faith is the worship of Tulsi Devi. Did you know that? In the Greek Orthodox, they've worshipped the Holy Basil. Why do you think it's called Holy Basil? Because at festival days, they would worship Tulsi and have Tulsi in different ceremonies, part of their ritual. So they adapted these rituals to suit the pagan gods of the Romans. So now there were other gospels, like the gospel that now is available, the gospel of Judas. Judas wasn't such a bad guy after all, believe it or not. There's a gospel of Thomas. Thomas actually travelled to India. Did you know that? He was one of the apostles of Jesus and he taught in India, in Goa. And also the gospel of Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene was Jesus's female top disciple. She was actually probably the most important disciple out of all the apostles. and she's never recognized. And to the extent that the misogynist leaders at that time were so upset that Jesus had a lady as his foremost disciple, they called her a prostitute and said that she was a prostitute that was converted. So all these different things to change things around. I just thought I'd mention some of this. I was going to give a seminar some time ago on Christianity and how it relates to Vaishnavism. But it's absolutely amazing when you see that. So these changes happen, and in Christianity there are so many different denominations. You know, you have the Protestants, you have the Pentecostals, you have the Mormons, you have and they all have different rituals. People in general find it really difficult to exist without rituals. If you don't want them, and if they don't have them, they'll make it up. They'll do it themselves. So in this section of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we see that the demons and the devotees are both following rituals. It's just pointed out here. They did, what was it Prabhupada said here? They did the oblations with clarified butter to the fire. They gave to the other orders of society, and so on and so forth. So they performed these rituals, both the demons and the devotees. So in chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states, "O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other is called demoniac. I've already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me the demoniac qualities." So the purport that Prabhupada gives there is, Lord Krishna, having assured Arjuna that he was born with divine qualities, is now describing the demoniac way. The conditioned living entities are divided into two classes in this world. So this is, again, you saw the demons and the devotees here at this point. Those who are born with divine qualities follow regulated life. That is to say, they abide by the injunctions of Scripture and by the authorities. This mentally is called divine. One who does not follow the regulative principles as they are laid down in the Scriptures and who acts according to his or her own whim is called a demoniac or asuric. There is no other criteria but obedience to the regulative principles of Scripture. So this is the criteria of any ritual. It has to be in line with Scripture. It is mentioned in the Vedic literatures that both the demigods and the demons are both born of a Prajapati, of the Prajapati. The only difference is that one class obeys the Vedic injunctions and the other does not. The demons' purpose for these rituals were basically to overpower the head of the universe. That was their whole aim. That was their raison d'etre. We're doing all this because we want to be immortal. We want to actually be the power of this universe. Can you name me any demon that also used Vedic ritual to assume power? Any demon within the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and within any demon that used ritualistic powers to become powerful? Huh? Who? Bali Maharaj, yeah. Yep, who else? Huh? Ravana. Ravana was actually really respected for what he actually was procuring. Who else? Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was such a big demon, but he always followed all the rituals. Even to the extent where he was so powerful through his rituals that he said the fruit tree should produce fruit all year round. And the fruit trees obeyed him. Have you ever read that? It sounds something vaguely familiar, doesn't it, in today's society, that you can have any fruit at any time? It's run by demons. so Hiranyakashipu. And their motivation was always a personal desire. They wanted to be God. They wanted to be able to control. But devotees follow the scriptural rituals to respect the laws of God. So Srila Prabhupada wanted to bring Krishna consciousness to the Western world and to the whole world, in fact. And so he didn't insist on too much strict rituals, like what was mentioned here with the sewn cloth, that you can't perform the service without a sewn cloth. So it would be pretty difficult here that Prabhupada actually recommended that we should bathe in the bay, that we should go and swim in the bay. He said that's very beneficial. But it'd be pretty difficult for Bhaktiman at 4 o'clock in the morning to quickly go and swim in the sea before he comes in to do the deity worship, or any of the pujaris, right? There'd be a line-up. Okay, let's go. We've got to go down the beach, have a dip in the beach, and now we can do the deity worship. And then, well, what are we wearing? Ladies, you can't have any sewn cloth. Men, you can't wear a kurta. And so Prabhupada made those distinctions. He didn't make it so strict. And, like if you read the Bhagavatam, the brahmacharis, where are the brahmacharis here? There's a brahmachari. Where's your bark dress? You should be wearing bark and sitting on a kusumat, So, these are not necessarily things that we need to do at the moment. Now, Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was also very understanding that to present Krishna consciousness, to present this philosophy, we have to be mindful of the population that we're living in. And if he was to go and meet very distinguished sort of people, the commissioners and the Raj, the English people that came, so he actually adopted the fact that he used to wear a really nice jacket. He even wore leather shoes. Because there was nothing else, so he wore leather shoes and he was very paka. Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce. And he drove in a Rolls-Royce, you're right. And so, this was really for the Brahmins at that stage, that was really like, oh, how can he do this? But he couldn't care. He was also threatened with his life because he was being so liberal in one sense. And so Prabhupada, being the dedicated disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he came to the West, he also realized that I have to adapt things. Now, in the beginning, he was pretty lenient in the beginning. If you read the Lilamrita, what the devotees were doing, they didn't even know that they were going to take initiation, or they didn't know what initiation meant, following the principles. So before they would actually go to the fire yajna, they would have donuts and a cup of coffee down the road. And so, these sort of things. So Prabhupada made adjustments for people. And slowly, Prabhupada introduced higher standards, higher rituals. But there was a basic sort of understanding that the rituals had to be there. But he basically kept the rituals very simple. And Prabhupada's teachings went worldwide. And because it went worldwide, in the world there are different ethnic and cultural and national differences. But the basic thing is you can go to any temple in any part of the world and the basic things, the basic rituals go on. Wake up early in the morning, have a Mangal Arati, offering your respects to the spiritual master, chanting your rounds, Guru Puja. Everything is exactly as Prabhupada said. If you go to China, they do it in a very clandestine way, in an undercover way, but they do it. If you go to Russia, they do it there as well. Everywhere they do this principle and the rituals that Prabhupada has put into place. He standardized the rituals and it's all over the world. Now the main ritual that we all do, dedicatedly, is chant 16 rounds. And we all have our own little ritual as far as chanting 16 rounds. I think I'm right in this. Some of us like to chant 16 rounds first thing in the morning, get them all out of the way, and chant Hare Krishna in a very nice consciousness. Others who go to work, okay, my ritual is I chant 6 rounds, take breakfast, 6 rounds on the train, come back, chant, like that. Prabhupada, even when he was a grihasta, and he was working at the he said that he was working in his pharmacy, he would do 4 rounds in the start, 4 rounds at morning tea, was it, I think? 4 rounds at lunch and 4 rounds at the end of the day to finish off his 16 rounds. So we have to really be mindful of the fact that we're part of the ritual, we do rituals. And chanting Hare Krishna is our main ritual, following the regulative principles. We have rituals. We will not eat meat, fish or eggs. And so then there's also performing deity worship. There's a ritual that we have to be completely cleansed before we go in. And if we have the opportunity to do deity worship on the altar, we have to have a clean mind, we have to have clean body, clean cloth, and we go in. We have to adorn ourselves, like here they said the demons were adorning themselves with jewelry. Actually, Dhruva Maharaj also, when he went to Vaikuntha, he dressed himself up with jewelry. But we don't dress ourselves with jewelry, although we can. But Prabhupada said our jewelry is tilak. That's the ornament that we wear to denote that we are followers of Lord Krishna. So that's our jewelry. So there are all these different rituals that we perform, but we don't take them too far. Prabhupada never gave us more than we could handle. And so this is why the movement has progressed, also in the performance of deity worship. So we do that. But we also have deity worship at home. And we basically follow the Acharya and, of what we should do. So if you have deities at home, there are also certain rituals that you have to perform. The main ritual is understanding, serving Krishna as a guest in your home. So if you have deities in your home, and most people like the fact that they have deities in their home because it makes the whole home auspicious. Primarily what it does is it emphasizes the fact that this is not your home, nothing belongs to you, everything belongs to Krishna. So Krishna is the master of this house. I may be paying the mortgage, but it's him, he owns it. He owns this house. Our deities own the house. So he's more than a guest. So we work out our own, and every one of us in Grihastha life has to work out their own ritual in serving the Lord, right? But we know from Prabhupada's direction that this is the way we do it. So when we do it, it's quite interesting, that some devotees have a difficulty sometimes. And something came to mind recently, which I want to make a point about. Somebody told me that they couldn't do arti or an offering to the deities because their ritual was that the lady of the house used to do the offering, making the offering for the deity. And so, unfortunately, they said, unfortunately, when the lady went off the altar, having her monthly period, the husband, who didn't know how to cook, wouldn't do an offering to the deities. So instead they just on those days, there was no offering for the deities. That's an aparat, that's a real no-no. And it's not the lady's fault in a sense, it's the man's fault. Because one of the things that Prabhupada taught us is that each and every one of us have to be able to cook for Krishna. So the husband on those days should take charge and learn how to cook. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to cut up some fruit, cook a little bit of rice, a little bit of veggies, and offer it to the deities. That was a real lame excuse in a sense. So Prabhupada made it quite clear, and it's important that we maintain that. So whoever is doing that, if your deities are not being looked after at those times when the lady of the house can't look after the deities, take a note, you look after the deities, because the deity is so important in your home. It is their home, it's the deity's home. So the other thing that Prabhupada said is to follow the regulative principles, to read his books every day. This is also a major ritual that was set up all over the world, that every morning there is a Bhagavatam class. Every morning you have the opportunity to hear this knowledge that's contained in these Bhagavatam, in these sets of Bhagavatam. The knowledge that will alleviate all the suffering in your life. The knowledge that will bring Krishna to you in your life. An understanding of Krishna. And will lead you back home, back to Godhead. So these books are incredibly important. And finally, the other ritual, which is part of Prabhupada's direction as well, is that we preach. We have to preach. We have to present Krishna consciousness to other people. The reason is that if we don't preach, this is actually the only panacea to save this planet. At the moment, some of you may realize, but we're at a precipice. Yep, a very dangerous part. We're really at a very different point, at a very dangerous point in our lives at the moment. We were at this point some time ago where there is a chance of a nuclear war. And I don't mean to be heavy or a doomsday sayer or anything, but we are at a very difficult junction in time where there is opposing forces and there are massive, massive weapons at their disposal, and it's frightening. Frightening of what, if anyone releases those weapons, what will happen to the world. So the only saving grace, and Prabhupada said this at one time when there was a crisis with Russia and America, when Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States and Gorbachev was also the Premier of Russia, of the Soviet Union. Prabhupada said the only thing that saved the world at that stage was the fact that the devotees were chanting Hare Krishna. So we have to be really mindful that it is our duty that we preach Krishna consciousness broadly to everyone as much as we can. And we preach by being really respectful to people and loving to people, respecting other people's religious rituals as well, and trying to understand people, why they do things. But more importantly, we have to actually make it our duty that somehow or other every day we make some arrangement that we can preach Krishna consciousness to someone. And the best way is by distributing Prabhupada's books. Somehow or other, if you can give someone a book, they may not read it straight away, but they're time bombs. There are things that are going to happen at some point in their life, because Krishna dwells within each and every person's heart. And at one point in their life, perhaps, there's a spark, and they think, what was that book that devotee gave me? That's what happened to me. I heard Devamrita Maharaj last night at the lecture that he gave. Similarly, he said, when I read Bhagavad Gita, the real Bhagavad Gita, everything changed. So that was the same with me. When I was, as I said many times, I was with another meditation group, but when I got the opportunity to read Prabhupada's books, and especially the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, things changed completely. And I became a devotee. So things can happen. So to actually distribute Prabhupada's books is a great thing. And don't change things. You know, rituals often happen in a really strange sort of way. You ever heard that story? It's been told several times about the cat in the box. Have you heard that story? They were doing a yajna in India. I think it was India, wasn't it? In India, and they were doing a yajna, and there was this cat running around all over the place. And so the pujari said, hey, hang on a tick, grab that cat, it's disturbing the yajna, and put it in a box. And so they put the cat in the box, and it would no longer interfere with the yajna that was going on. And then somebody was observing this. He didn't know what was actually, but somehow or other he saw that, during this yajna, the priest grabbed the cat and put the cat in the box. So the next time this person that was watching had to do a yajna, they set everything up like the priest had done, but then in the same token they said there has to be a cat in the box. And then for centuries after, with every yajna, where's the cat? Put him in the box. So we have to be mindful that we don't do that kind of a thing as well, that there's really thought behind how we do our rituals. And Prabhupada has laid everything out for us. We don't change things that Prabhupada has set in place. But so this is the reason we have to preach and distribute these books. So there are many, many peace plans, and there's only one solution, and that's knowledge of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada, this is a quote that Srila Prabhupada made about distributing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, because we have this wonderful thing that's happening after this program, after breakfast, about the wonderful efforts that the devotees have put in distributing sets of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So Prabhupada said, by distributing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and also Bhagavad Gita, you can help save a soul And by giving this knowledge to others, you can also become very, very dear to Lord Krishna. Giving scriptures to others is an act of the greatest charity, and it gives immense benefit to all parties involved. So in Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir, we have a wonderful result for this Bhadra Purnima Śrīmad Bhāgavatam distribution campaign. It's been absolutely amazing. And we have some really wonderful devotees that did exceptional, to me it's just like exceptional service. My personal heartfelt thanks and praise go to all the devotees who participated. I think it's just absolutely wonderful what you did. You're helping to save the world. Anybody that is out there preaching and distributing Prabhupada's books, you're helping to save the world. And we can say that in a blasé sort of way. But imagine what the world is like if there is war and there's pain and suffering. You just have to look at Gaza. You just have to just watch some of the vision of what happens in the Ukraine, where temples have been bombed, devotees have been killed. This is a reality, folks. You know, so by this book distribution and the great efforts that have been made, we're helping to avert this. It won't happen if we diligently make time out to actually preach. So, and my thanks go there. His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj is going to be here at 10 o'clock, as is His Grace Aniruddha Prabhu, and they'll be addressing the book distributors, those who went out, the Maharatis, the great devotees. After breakfast prasadam at 10 o'clock today. So please join in. Even if you haven't distributed a book yourself, please stay and just honour these devotees that have done work for you in keeping this world peaceful and safe. So don't miss out on that. So rituals are important, but we follow Prabhupada's rituals to the letter and read his books and preach. So I'll stop here if everybody has any questions or comments at all, Prabhus. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes. Hey, Mahatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Bhaktadas Prabhu.
Hare Prabhu.
You took this word Krishna consciousness many times. So would you like to tell us how you preach Krishna consciousness to the people who do not know about what is Krishna consciousness?
How I personally preach?
Yeah.
Be a friend. Be friendly.
What is Krishna consciousness?
Krishna consciousness. What is Krishna consciousness? My goodness me. Krishna consciousness is loving Krishna. It's basically what Lord Jesus was just saying. Love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being. Every part of you. Just have Krishna as a center part of your life in everything that you do. And then realize that God is dwelling in each and every person that you're meeting. And love them as much as you love yourself. Because, you know, God dwells within you. Hare Krishna, thank you for your Madanga playing. Any other comments or questions at all, Prabhus? I'll wait.
Thank you, Haribol. Thank you, Prabhu. It's a very nice, enlightening discussion and very elaborate discussion about the rituals of different religions, especially for the history of Jesus, the Christianity. Thank you for this. But I think that is a side issue, but main issue that the question that Mahatma Prabhu asked, that what is Krishna consciousness? I have been reading, actually last 2 days I have been reading the chapter 12 on the Bhakti Yoga. So, in Bhakti Yoga, what you said that just now, that is the Krishna consciousness. Because always keep these things in mind. This Krishna is with you and with everybody's heart. Be kind to everybody. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing, you know, how far Krishna consciousness reaches. I was on the phone to a lady, and I had something to do with an electricity account or something. And she wanted to know what my email address is. And so I said, bhakta@iskcon.net.au. And she said, ISKCON? And she said, yeah. She said, is that the ISKCON that has these fabulous restaurants? And she was in America, in Ohio. And she said, I went to a restaurant there, which was an ISKCON restaurant, and I had the most delicious meal there. Now, she'd never been to any of the restaurants here. She didn't know, right? But in her mind, years ago, she went to Ohio, in a restaurant in Ohio, America, and as soon as she heard the word ISKCON, she realized, wow, this guy's got some. And I said, yeah, we have several restaurants here in Melbourne as well. No. And I said, where? She said, where? In the heart of Melbourne. You can go there. There's Gopals and Crossways and Radhi Chais. And she was blown out. So, and I said, you can come to the temple as well. Oh, you have a temple. So this was a lady, this was, that I had some business to do as far as electricity account. But, yeah. So you can preach in any situation.
Actually, the prasadam is another time bomb.
Yeah. Prabhupada said actually prasadam is our secret weapon. Prasadam is our secret weapon. You should always have some prasadam handy, especially Mahaprasadam if you've got some Mahaprasadam. But people love prasadam, they really appreciate it. Oh, that's another thing. I had a candidate. We have council elections coming up, right? And a candidate knocked on my door and he was a Hindu, and he was running for council. And he realized, oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, and I gave him some prasadam. he was rapt, So you should have something ready all the time. The devotees are very helpful like that.
Even I have been reading the book of Swami.
All right.
Yeah, the first book, the
Journey Within, or Journey, yeah. Fabulous book. Yeah, really good.
Actually, you are given the prasadam by one devotee in Europe.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I just on that point, I'm doing a bit of an autobiography. I'm writing some of the things that have happened in my life. And I analysed when the very first time that I had prasadam was at a rock festival. Some of you may remember Sunbury Rock Festival. Can you remember Sunbury? Right? Were you there? Okay. Oh, really? You're not into Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs? Okay. So anyway, I was at a rock festival, completely out of my head. Young 18, 19-year-old kid, and there were thousands, like Woodstock it was, here in Sunbury, first time. And the devotees had watermelon. Devotees were distributing watermelon, pieces of watermelon to the public, prasadam. That was the first time I had prasadam. And the remembrance of that, and that changed my whole life, having that one. And the remembrance of that is why when I organise the Rath Yatras, we have free watermelon. And it came back from that. I remembered that and I thought, when we do Rath Yatra, we're having pieces of watermelon that we hand out free to everybody.
You see how Krishna plays his act.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Watermelon he played.
Yep. And then the other time was when I was here and Ramai Swami was serving our prasadam. He was Ramai Brahmachari and he served halva. The first time I ever had halva at a Sunday feast, I couldn't believe it. I said, my God, this is fantastic. For a Western boy to have halva. It was prasadam. And I had it and I opened up my wallet and gave him all my money. I said, he was asking for a donation. I said, and Ramai turned around and said, you really want to give that much? And I said, yeah, I've never tasted anything like this. This is amazing, Halva went, I still love halva. So, yeah. Yes, Mataji. Haribol. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, you talked about an incident wherein you said that if ladies have periods,
Yeah.
so the man of the house should do the service.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what if the person, lives by themselves?
Oh, that's an interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that one. Actually, again, we have to ascertain what is the most important thing and what is the ritual that you set up in your home. So if you had a little child, right, and you were single and you lived by yourself, would you feed your little child? So in the same way, Krishna is your child. Prabhupada often has said there was a couple that couldn't have children, and so Prabhupada said to the couple, so the deities are now your children. You look after them like your children. So you can make arrangements. That thing is not such a major ritual that has to be followed within the Grihastha ashram. So if you're a single lady and you have deities, it's not a big deal. It's okay. Just purify yourself as best as possible and pray to Krishna. Just say, Krishna, this is the best I can do at this point in time. Even when you're ill sometimes. But you cannot neglect your deities. You cannot neglect them. They are personalities. And so we have to look after them. If you're so incapacitated, then get one of your friends to come in and offer some fruit and water to the deities. Just ring up your friends and say, hey, listen, I'm so sick, I can't move, but my deities have to be looked after. Could you please come and just cut up some apple and fruit and offer it to the deities? We have to see Krishna in a personal way, not impersonal. Okay? They are not a prasadam making machine. They are personalities that have entered your life and are looking for your service, and are looking for your love, and they want to love you and help you. Is that okay? Jai Prabhu. All right, so we've got this wonderful festival coming up after lunch, after breakfast. Today is Ekadasi. So let's take prasadam and get back here and honour those great devotees, those Maharatis that have distributed Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada ki!